Roses, roses, roses. I love roses. And this happens to be one of the roses in my garden. But I'm always looking for new roses to add to my garden. And let us just take a look at this rose catalog and see what is available, what to look for. Tucking a rose here and a rose there in the border just adds so much surprise and joy to the garden. So welcome to Catherine's Garden and Home, and let's have a discussion about roses. I just am very thankful for you and happy that you have decided to be a part of this garden community. I consider you part of my garden family, and I'm so excited about this new year coming up where we're going to just expand and explode and enjoy the garden. And roses are just so important to me. I love roses in the garden. I was able to get in the mail this catalog, the Jackson&Perkins rose catalog. I love their roses because you can get them at Home Depot. They have different types, and during throughout my gardening experience, I have actually purchased some of the Jackson&Perkins roses, like Mr. Lincoln. I bought that. Mr. Kennedy. I don't see Queen Elizabeth, but I have that rose here in my garden. And just to see the new roses, so that when I go and visit Home Depot, when they start to sell their roses, I'll have an idea of what are the latest roses, what are the most famous ones, like Double Delight. I need to get that one. But I really like the climbing roses. They seem to do well in my garden. The climbing roses and the shrub roses, or maybe even the floribundas. But I am going to definitely check it out. And I can't wait for that time to come. Right now here in my area, the snow just seems to want to fall at this time. We're getting a lot of snow and rain and ice. And so it just seems to be pushing out that springtime. And there's this hunger for spring. That's why these tulips are just so special. It's just on time. So I'm going to have a taste of spring before my tulips actually develop and show up in the garden. But there are, if you're not aware of it, there are two different types of ways of really obtaining roses. You can either get bare-root roses or roses in containers. And I tend to like the bare-root roses. I think that they seem to establish well in the garden and have a tendency to return. One of the things that I think that you and I need to be aware of, especially here in the Northeast where I am, one of the things that I am aware of, or which has happened to me, is that my roses sometimes don't seem to last that long. The longest that some of the roses, especially the hybrid tea roses, seem to last for about, especially the hybrid tea roses, they seem to last for about 1 to 2, maybe 3 years, and then they may get black spot or some form of disease, and or if it's a hard and harsh winter, they have a tendency also to die back. So I'm not afraid to upgrade or to buy the bare-root roses. They seem to be less expensive than the container roses. and especially if you go to one of the big box stores, and the one that I tend to go to is Home Depot, when they have out their roses, it's not that bad. It's about, I would say, $10 or so, around $10 for a Bareroot rose, and it's a good investment because they tend to last for about, as I say, 2 to 3, maybe 4 years. So you get some time out of that, and you also get a lot of beauty. And then sometimes you might get lucky, and if they become really well established in your garden, you can have them for many years. And that is what has happened to me and for me with my Eden climbing rose. And I'm going to show you some pictures of them. I've had them since around 2000, and they're going strong for the last 20 years. There was one winter where they died back. It died back, and I had to really cut it back hard. But it grew back, and now it's catching itself. It's not fully there, but it's almost there. And then there's another rose too, Cornelia rose, my Cornelia rose, the more peachy colored one, that also suffered during that time, but it's back pretty strong also. So it's a good investment. Sometimes you just luck out, and the roses come back and bring such great joy. So I'm excited to share this with you too as well. And look out for those roses at Home Depot. The last one I bought was called Westerland. I don't think it's a Jackson&Perkins rose bush, but it did very well, and it's growing in the garden, and it's a climber. So I'm excited to see what happens this year with it in the garden. But also, I have this Jackson&Perkins Garden Inspired Living Guide, 2021 Garden Guide, and this is fantastic. You know, usually around this time and into March, a lot of the roses that I have in my garden I got from Home Depot, and I bought them as Bareroot plants, and a lot of them are from Jackson&Perkins. So when I look at this garden guide here and I see this here, it gives me a heads up as to what roses are considered unique and special by Jackson&Perkins. And they also give you some information on the creation of roses and a lot of background information. One thing I like about catalogs is that they give you a lot of information, a rose selection guide, and really helps it helps in understanding how to best care for roses, because roses can be finicky. However, if you have this information, it will help in the plant selection. So in the past, I used to buy a lot of the hybrid tea roses, but I found that they didn't last as long and they were a little more finicky. Whereas the shrub roses, they seem to be a little bit more sturdy. That's why I bought a lot of the knockout roses and found them to be helpful. Or actually easier to care for. And then of course the climbers. I bought 2 climbers, and they've been in my garden for a long time. The Eden climber rose, and also I can't remember the other one, the orange colored one, but yeah, that one as well. And then the miniature roses too. Now, isn't this beautiful? It's a new introduction of J&P Rose of the Year, and Larger Than Life is what the name of it is. but I love this color. It's so beautiful. So when I go to Home Depot and I start to look for roses, I'm going to look for these names to see if any of them appear and see if I can get it at a discount. Double Delight has been an old rose, or it's been around for a while, and I've seen it before, but I never purchased it. But seeing it again here, if I see it again, I might just pick it up. The Peace Rose. Now the Peace Rose is a classic, and I do have one in my garden. And it does struggle a little bit, but it's beautiful. The blooms that I received from the Peace Rose is so beautiful, and actually it's on the cover of a book that I wrote. I have the picture of the Peace Rose. The grandiflora roses are so beautiful and stately. I love these pictures. And this one is called Sweet Rose of Mine. This reminds me of the rose bush that I have, the climber, eating climber rose. It seems like a lot of the colors now for the roses are this sort of purple color, which is a lavender color. And I see a lot more yellows than I have in the past. And this is a new introduction, Double Easy Orange. That David Austin appeal. And I'm excited about possibly getting a David Austin rose. Or I can look for an imitation. I mean, a rose is a rose is a rose. This is beautiful. And of course the climbing roses. I did buy a Dawn Walnut one time, and it didn't survive. And I've heard of iceberg rose. And it's a World Federation of Rose Society's Hall of Fame rose. So that's interesting. If I see that, the iceberg roses at Home Depot, when they're selling their Bareroot, I might just purchase that. And then, of course, the hedge roses. Now, this is what a Bareroot rose looks like. I love the information that this catalog, Jackson&Perkins, provides concerning Bareroot roses and own root versus container roses. And it gives you some really basic information, but really good information, because now you can know the difference between a grafted rose and an own root rose. Grafted roses, sometimes referred to as budded Bareroot rose, have roots that belong to a different variety of rose than the shoots. So in other words, it is grafted onto rootstock. So this part of the rose here is from another rose, a stronger rose. And more than likely it's been cultivated for 2 years. And so it's able to be established quicker in your garden than if it were on its own root. And this is the graft union right here. So when you're planting your rose, for me, I like to plant it really close to the ground to kind of protect the rose graft, especially from the winter. And then you have roses that are on their own rootstock. And they, if they should die back, would grow back true to the rose that you planted because it's on its own rootstock. The only problem is that it takes longer, and it takes longer for it to develop. Unlike grafted roses, both their roots and shoots come from the same variety of the plant. So you'll get what you are looking for on your own root bare root rose. So you have the grafted bare root and you have the own root bare root. Now, a lot of us buy our roses in containers, container roses. Like the knockout roses that I've bought them in pots. And they seem to grow very well in the pot. And I plant them in the ground. I get to enjoy them as a potted plant, but then I'm able then to put it into the landscape, and they seem to do very well because I believe that they're much more established and they've been around for a while. And it says here, fall can be a good season to plant container roses because it allows them enough time to establish themselves before cold or freezing temperatures arrive. And that's usually how I handle my roses in containers, because I usually get roses in containers, like as I said, the knockout roses during Mother's Day. And so I like to put it on the deck. I like to have it close by me. And then in the fall, in September, I tend to then plant it into the landscape and enjoy it that way. And then they also provide information about feeding and watering roses. Well, I tend to give my roses fertilizer and feeding at the beginning of the early spring season, before it really starts to bud out. I would give it some fresh compost, some Miracle-Gro fertilizer, rosebud fertilizer, rose bloom fertilizer. If I have any Epsom salts, I'd put it there. I'd put some old bananas around it so it can get some potassium, and just try to help it out and water it a lot. And that seems to help the rose to come out really good, to flower well. So it says roses prefer moist, well-drained soil high in organic matter, fertilized with a time-release formula in early spring to promote vigorous growth and beautiful blooms all season. Water deeply, preferably early in the day when the soil appears dry at a depth of 2 inches. Mulch around the base of the rose to conserve moisture and moderate soil temperatures. And so that's basically what I follow. Just mulching it, keeping it well watered, and providing nutrients to it. So I would do that in the spring, but also I would fertilize it again in July after it's really bloomed. That first beautiful June bloom, then in July I would give it some more fertilizer so that it can, get back its strength and possibly push out some fresh blooms for September. September. So how to plant bare root roses? It's not that difficult. You dig a hole, you check the roots for any broken places, you trim it up, you put it in the ground, you make sure that the root ball is supported by soil, then you put the dirt back in the ground, Continue to backfill the rest of your soil, making sure to have the bud union buried just below the soil line. And then you mulch. And it's that simple. And you just, make sure you water it. Make sure that you check it out. Make sure that it's getting enough water. I think water is the key to the roses. Watering at the roots. The watering overhead is not the best thing for the roses because of the fact that you can get black spot or powdery mildew. So you want to really water at the root. So that's some care information. And it's not that hard. I mean, with gardening, you win some, you lose some. But when you do win, when your rose takes and it becomes a part of your landscape, it's something to look forward to and enjoy. And each year I try to add new and special roses into the garden and just tuck them here and there within the borders. I think they just add so much color and joy, especially in the month of June. And then if it's a recurring rose, then having that special splash of color again in the fall season when it's a little cooler. Thank you so much for being a part of this channel and this gardening community. I am so much looking forward to us spreading joy and just enjoying the joy of the garden. So make sure that you subscribe to Catherine's Garden for more videos and tips and joy and relaxation, all the good stuff. Thank you so much for clicking and listening and sharing your time with me. It is greatly appreciated. Don't forget to subscribe to Catherine's Garden and Home. Make sure that you hit the notification bell for more videos to come. I am going to talk a little bit more about roses, and also I'm hoping to get to Home Depot to see what is available. So stay tuned for this exciting time and season of rose hunting, rose loving, roses, roses, roses. Thank you so much for watching. For more videos, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. And thank you so much for watching. See you next time right here in Catherine's Garden. Bye.